Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Growing Stronger Together. I'm your host today. My name is Kim Hale. And for loyal listeners, you know that I am usually always talking about young children, families, language development, books, literacy, reading, all the things that I love. And today I have a guest in the studio who loves all of those things just like me. But her focus of the conversation is going to be about children in Appalachia and how can we as a community do more to make sure they have access to books, because reading is not, it doesn't happen automatically. So I want to introduce my colleague from ETSU, Luann Davis. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here.
Is this your first podcast?
This is my very first podcast. So yes, it is.
And you're nervous?
I am a little nervous because I want to make sure that I can relay all the information that I have in my head.
I mean, we have good notes, just so audience that you know. Luann is a literacy education researcher. Mm-hmm. You are a associate professor?
I am an associate professor.
At ETSU.
Yes.
East Tennessee State University, and you came to us from Memphis.
I did. So
that's a big change.
It was a huge change. You know, the thing is, though, with being really just embedded within special education, the needs of our children don't particularly change, and what they need to have and what our families need to have doesn't necessarily change. The environment and the culture may change, mm-hmm. but not necessarily what the needs are. And I find that pretty indicative throughout most of the United States, that all of us that have children that have different abilities need to have support in order to reach our literacy goals.
And we are all trying to do better mm-hmm. with reading, education, literacy, encouragement, right? There's so many distractions for children and families. And then in Appalachia, we have some challenges. In fact, for loyal listeners, you will know that I guess just this morning, the conversation I had with Renee Lyons about reading and books, and she mentioned that in the Appalachian culture years ago, maybe in the 80s, we had authors who wrote children's books from that perspective. And that's kind of fallen to the wayside, and we don't have very many of those books anymore. And so we were encouraging listeners that if you write stories about Appalachia, to write a children's book, because we need children here to see themselves in the story.
In the books, right.
Yeah, in the story. So let's get started. Literacy is foundational. I talk about that all the time. Part of this, Ballot Health sponsors this podcast, and part of my mission and what I've been charged to do is really highlighting for families and childcare providers and teachers strategies, information and knowledge, resources, giving them tips and tricks and things that they can do just within their routines of every day to help their child either be prepared to go to school for the first time, right, or to continue to be engaged at school and to get the most out of it they can, and to support their literacy journey of learning to read, right? So you have a big interest in rural Appalachia children and the challenges that they face. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, you know, as you were sharing, and for rural Appalachia in particular, you know, there are cultural dynamics that are unique to this area that we want to make sure that we're capturing them. And just to back up a little bit, my research is really grounded in having access, and access being one of the most important components of making sure that all students have access to the same curriculum. Whether that be for literacy or mathematics or science. And I've done some research in each of those content areas, as well as working with peers. And so my foundational research is in and around the strategies we use to make sure that our children are getting access to the same curriculum as other students. And so thinking about it from that perspective, and in Appalachia, we know that there's lots of storytelling. That was something super new to me.
Yes.
I originate from Colorado, and when I came to especially Northeast Tennessee in particular, we have the International Storyteller Center there in Jonesboro, and understanding that the culture, like what has been done, and even looking at the Carter Fold as you go up north, a lot of the culture here is in and around storytelling and relaying stories through words and actions. And how can we use that in the music? Absolutely. I mean, that was one of the big attractions for me here too, is like sharing stories through music. How can we use that to help all of our students to understand literacy better, and still find a way that can align with what the state has. I've been doing a lot of work with aligning state standards. We've got some new foundational standards that have been coming down from federal government to state government to us. And then we try to teach teachers how to, embed that within the school systems. And a lot of times it gets lost in translation, I guess I should say, is that we get so rigorous in thinking about, oh, I need to meet the standards, that we lose sight of, are we really reaching the students? Are the students actually learning? Are they actually like engaged in the literacy that they're being given? And is it something that's relevant and relatable to them that they will remember and comprehend? And that's how comprehension and fluency are built. All the things that we have to do as educators to make sure that, we're meeting the standards. We also want to make sure that the children are enjoying what they're doing, because if they don't enjoy it, they're not going to remember it, and comprehension is going to be an afterthought of something, an addition we have to teach instead of one of the main components of why we're teaching. If that makes sense.
It does. So I guess what I neglected to tell the audience is that in your role at ETSU, you are an associate professor in special education, right?
And I teach teachers.
So you are teaching people who want to be teachers.
Correct.
Or you're teaching people who are teachers and they've come back for a master's or another certification, or maybe you're doing professional development, right?
Exactly. And, one of the other pillars of the things that I do, or many hats that I wear, include doing professional developments where we go out into the community and share some of the strategies that we know work. In our lingo, we call it evidence-based instructional practices, whatever. But for those that use practical application, like families, parents, we want to make sure that what can I do? What can I do at home? Like while I'm cooking dinner, what can I be doing at home while I'm cooking dinner and I'm busy, that I can be supporting my student to learn how to read better, and so that they can be successful in school and have that positive school experience. Because I think that's what happens a lot of times is children are discouraged, and they feel like they're not meeting the expectations of their teacher. They all look up to their teacher with big glowing eyes, and when and they hear and see what the other students are doing, and then they feel maybe less than, and that's even more so. It compounds for students that have different abilities, students that have disabilities. And so making sure that all the students in the classroom are feeling uplifted and reinforced in a very positive way.
Right.
And using that at home as well, like make sure that we have partnerships at home so they all come together.
So you've highlighted a couple of things. One, so the state of Tennessee, as with every state in the United States, sets the standards for children that are in public school, pre-K through 12th grade. We expect in this grade that they learn this in English and language arts, and this in math, and this in science. And so as a teacher education or a teacher prep program, we are charged as university professors to make sure that we are teaching, including those standards, teaching these soon-to-be teachers or teachers that are practicing even, how to include and cover those standards in their teaching, right?
Exactly.
And you do make a great point that we have very high expectations for children, and they can usually meet them, right?
Absolutely.
But it is easy to get discouraged. And I think, Louanne, as you were so right, as professors, as teachers, even as parents, we get so hung up on the standards and the state testing that we forget about the storytelling,
Right.
the music, the things that in Northeast Tennessee and this Appalachian culture, it's very rich here. We forget that we have these unique opportunities to really engage children and be able to do all of those standards and teach.
Absolutely.
But we can't forget
We have
how
to
to approach it.
preserve, right, preserving the culture. And I think that's something that I'm a very strong advocate of, like, whether I was in Colorado or, Memphis area or out here, one corner to the other of the
Right.
state. As a good educator and even as a good citizen, you want to, take a step back and reflectively think about what culture am I living in right now, and what are the norms of this particular area, and where do I fit into that? And I think, especially for this area, I'm very passionate about, because I want it to be preserved. I love the way of life here. I love the people here, and I would hate to see that this area grow so big that they lose that. And so ways that we can incorporate any part of the deep and rich culture that they have in this area and keep it in the classroom, and keeping the young people that come through ETSU, when I talk to them about being teachers, they all want to stay in this area.
Yes.
They want to stay here. They want to get their license, but then they want to go out and give back to their own communities. And so that's a good way that we can continue to preserve, a lot of the cultural heritage that this area has. And so that's something that I think is important. And when we talk about that, we want to really speak to, if you decide to move to Texas, it's okay. That's, spread your wings, fly. But at the same time, you want to look around you and talk to the parents, talk to the families, find out what is important to them, and then make that part of your classroom environment. Because not just what is important to you, we're going to meet the standards, we got to follow these rules, we have a set curriculum we have to follow, etc. But making sure that we're also embedding some of those pieces and those components, because preserving people's culture is something that makes this area so unique and beautiful. And I'm a big advocate of keeping it that way. So yeah, using music or even storytelling and keeping that going, as well as some of the other, little, as a culture, everybody, and I know I'm kind of going down this weird rabbit hole of talking about cultures, but there's a language out here.
Yes,
That
there
is
is.
very unique to this area.
Definitely.
Some things that I have had to try to figure out, being, somebody from Colorado, and trying to figure that out.
That's probably a whole podcast, Leah.
I know it is. And so taking those things into account as well when we're working in any setting, or if you're even like at home with your kids, making sure that, you preserve those things as well when you're using a rich language environment. And so that can kind of transition us into like maybe some of the really cool strategies that we can use at home as families.
Let's talk. Well, first I want to say, if you have not been to Northeast Tennessee or even Southwestern Virginia, beautiful, beautiful. At ETSU, you're relatively new, right?
Yes, this is my second year.
Have you walked across campus yet and heard the bluegrass folks playing their? Yes, it is lovely.
It echoes through the campus, and it's wonderful. Last year, I took time to go to, it's called Down Home over here somewhere, and it was like all those in the music department and things, where they were doing their finals, and they came and stood on the stage and played. And for me, that was like
amazing.
Oh, this is the best place ever.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and a lot of students, a lot of children really relate to that, and it's something that I think parents, I think like my grandparents played music and my great-grandparents, but sometimes families forget that that's also a certain literacy, right? The musical, the stories, the words, the tunes, the harmonies, like those are all very important things to do. And can relate to literacy. But yeah, let's talk about things that parents could have at home that will help them.
So thinking about in the context of knowing that a lot of times we're all very busy, and most of us have at least one job, if not more, and then having to come home and help children with homework and still have to buy groceries and do all the things
And
that you
cook
need
and
to do.
clean and give baths and do laundry and
Exactly.
Yes.
So one of the really quick strategies that you could try is just grab some Post-it notes and write down what things are and put them on things like refrigerator. Put the whole word refrigerator on there. And then when
Nice.
you go to the fridge, you point to the word refrigerator. And one of the strategies that I'm a huge proponent of, because it is an evidence-based practice and it's been shown to work, but it's so simple. Kim, it's so simple. It's explicit instruction is its technical name, but it's basically model lead test, or I do, we do, you do. So it would be, for instance, if I use the refrigerator as my hypothetical, you would say, this word is refrigerator. Okay, that's the I do part.
'Cause you said it, right?
Right,
Like,
I say it out loud. I'm modeling it.
I
I'm
do.
demonstrating what I'm reading the word aloud to my child.
And you're pointing
I'm
at the
pointing
written
to
word
it.
refrigerator. That's on the sticky note on the refrigerator. Okay.
Right, and then the second step to that would be, say it with me. That's the we do part,
Okay.
where you point to the word and have your
Say-
child point to the word and say the word with you.
Refrigerator.
Refrigerator. That's right, refrigerator. And then go back to them and say, your turn.
And then
And that's the
child
you
says
do. And that's when your child says refrigerator. And then you give them that positive praise, or, that's right, refrigerator. Good job saying refrigerator. You did it. You said refrigerator. And within that 10 seconds, you've just reinforced that word like 12 times.
that is true.
And you could do that with anything around the house. Even in labeling things inside the refrigerator, or their toys, like labeling what their toys are and helping them to sort toys to put into, like, this is where all of your blocks go, or this is where all of your Marvel figurine characters go, or this is where all, in my grandson's case, this is where all your tractors go, because he loves John Deere tractors. And so that's kind of what they've done at their house as well, is put like tractor bucket and this bucket and that bucket, and so they know when they sort them out, because then you're also building other capacities of being able to sort things appropriately and put them in the right compartment. And so there's that kind of thing too. But if you think about it in those terms, if you use that one simple strategy of model lead test, I do, we do, you do.
And you said that was evidence-based. So that means
It is
that
evidence-based.
when we have done research and we've used that strategy versus no strategy,
Right.
that the children who have participated in I do, we do, you do, they've done better.
I don't want to, I never say 100%, because
Right.
the researcher in me
But
says
there's
you
a
cannot ever
tendency.
say 100%. However, it has been researched up and down both sides of the mountain. It's 100, I'm not going to say 100%. It's been shown to work for anyone. I mean, it can even work for getting your husband to take out the trash. All right. So watch me take out the trash. It's full. I see it flowing over. Let me take out the trash. Okay, let's take out the trash together. Let's do it together. Okay, your turn. You take out the trash. So just thinking about it, and that's kind of like generalizable terms that you can use. This particular strategy of I do, we do, you do, or model lead test, means that we can use that strategy for any task that we ask our children to do. Whether it's putting on their pajamas or anything, but to like tie it back into making sure that it's, enhancing their literacy. Another thing that we can do is, if you're cooking dinner, you can invite them to share in cooking the dinner with you, and then practice spelling while you're standing there. Like, I'm going to stir these beans. How would you think we would spell the word stir? What do you hear at the beginning? What does that sound like to you? That's right. S and a T together. That's, S and a T together says st. And then What sounds make Yeah, it does sound like it might be a U, but it's actually an I. So we're going to say stir with the because there's and remember. So just thinking about like when we first learned to read as parents, and, I remember, I don't know if anybody else can do this because I'm a bit odd, but I do remember when I first learned to read and having that epiphany of, oh, all these words make sense now.
Yes.
And a lot of times you're driving in the car, and some of it is sight word recognition. Guaranteed, regardless of what your child's ability level is, the kids will always point to McDonald's, Taco Bell, like they can pick up on those kind of sight words. And as a parent, and you're sitting in the car, you're driving, running your errands, that's a great opportunity for you to like really hone in on that. Like, yes, that says Taco Bell. What letters did you notice in the sign that said Taco Bell? What letters did you see? What do you hear? What letters do you hear? Taco, T, that's right. What other things do we see that start with T? So there's lots of ways that you can capitalize on those little incidental opportunities to, reinforce their literacy that way.
My children liked the license plate game
Yes.
of trying to do the ABCs sequentially. So looking for an A on license plates and then a B. And then as they got older and they were bored with letters, and if we were going on a long trip, it would be looking for different states, right? So being able to read the state on the license plate and keeping track of which states we'd seen and which ones we hadn't. And so there's lots of things
There's
you
lots
can
of
do
really
if you
great
think of it.
opportunities to just really bring literacy into your household in a very low-tech way.
Right. Because not everybody here can get to a library. Like we have public libraries here, but if you've been to our area, you know that, Mountain City is probably, 50 miles from here. Does it take 50 minutes? No. It takes an hour and a half because you're driving like this, right? You're up a mountain, you're going around curves. And so not every place is accessible. Like we still have people that live in the boonies. Heck, like we live in the boonies compared to a lot of people, right? And so getting to the library, taking advantage of all that stuff, that may not be, it might not be close and it might not be part of your routine, right?
Right. And I think that kind of touches on it a lot too. If you're not brought up, and if you're not given opportunity to make that part of your routine, as you say, I like that, I'm still that, then it's not something that you typically would even think to do. Like,
Correct.
Let me load up the kids and go to the library. That may not be in your wheelhouse. It may not be something that you're even comfortable doing. Like you may not even want to go to the library and have to, load everybody in the car and drive all the way. Sometimes you're just tired at the end of the day and you don't want to do that. And so there are other ways. And I think when the hurricane hit with Helen,
Yeah, Hurricane Helene.
why that just popped out of my head. We had several epiphanies. I know a lot of the focus went to over in the North Carolina area, Western North Carolina, but even in and around our area here, like 5 minutes from my house, the internet service was disrupted.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And thinking about having that kind of access and, do we have the capacity in this area to make sure that everybody gets, has some kind of access to be online, because we're all so connected right now, like even cell phones and everything. I even hesitate to call them cell phones. They're like portable computer devices now.
Correct.
They're not even cell phones. Rarely do I even talk on mine. I text. So,
yes.
But as early as last weekend, I did drive up. We went to Mountain City. Beautiful. But there are lots of places where there is no service at all.
Correct.
And so you think about people that live there in that area, and how do they get any kind of, internet service at all up there? And I know that there's some like Viasat and Spectrum and some of those, but those are very expensive. They're very expensive services to have. So how do we make sure that everybody is getting
Again, access.
And which goes back again to what I spoke to earlier. My research is all about how do we make sure everybody has equal access to resources. Equal access doesn't necessarily mean equal outcome, because you get out of something what you put into it, is my philosophy. But at the same time, you'll never know if you don't have access to it, to at least try.
Yes.
And so making sure that everybody has equal access to certain resources that may not be readily available is something that's very important to me as well. And if that's not something that's an option, what are some other options that we do have? Like, what are some other options that we can have? And I found that again, going back to the library, but a lot of libraries offer hotspots.
Yes.
So you can check out for
Yes.
free a mobile hotspot and take the hotspot
Yes.
home with you.
COVID taught us this.
Yes, it did.
Because we really wanted students to still be able to have school, but in our remote areas of Northeast Tennessee, we don't have cell service. Our mountains and valleys are so, and so we had to figure that out. And initially, I think we had parents coming and just sitting with their kids in the parking lot of schools, right? But that wasn't for everybody. So the hotspots, that's been helpful. We still have families, though, that have to drive to be able to get the signal on the hotspot.
Right.
If they live in it's
Right.
it's a whole challenge.
Down in a valley or a holler?
Yes, a holler. And at the same time, we love it because it's beautiful, but it is a challenge.
It does have some challenges. It does
really
have some
does.
challenges. So in that regard, we have to kind of think outside of the box. And, I compiled that hopefully we can share at some point with your listeners a list of some free resources
Oh yeah, we'll put
that
them in
everyone can take advantage of.
we'll put them in the notes.
And I love that. And so one of them so I'm just going to share two really quick. I'm
Okay.
trying to
Okay.
prioritize for time. But one of them is called Starfall, and it's a web-based.
Okay. STARFALL.
Yep, Starfall. All one word, starfall.com. It's completely free. And it even brought back days of when I was teaching in the field. I taught in the field for 14 years and 2 years as a paraprofessional. And so it was one of my go-tos, like when a student got all their work done, then they were able to get on a computer and use Starfall. And it's very intuitive, 3, 5-year-olds. I even had, because I worked with transitionary age students, which are 18 to 21. So they were older students. They still loved it. They thought it was fun. Oh, wow. But it's a website that you can go on, and it's very focused toward K-5, or pre-K-5, actually. And it's got lots of different activities that they're games. They're just games that are easy for young children or emerging learners, if they have these emergent literacy skills, and you want them to be reinforced. So if your child has some time, on the iPad, if they do 20 minutes of Starfall, play the games on Starfall, they're actually going to be learning. Mm-hmm. Then they can, whatever that Minecraft or whatever, then they can do that instead. Right. Whatever.
Yes.
So Starfall is one that, and I don't get paid for this. I don't get paid to promote it,
Okay.
but
we're
it's a good
promoting
one.
Starfall. Okay.
And the other one is the state of Tennessee actually put out several free resources, and you do have to have access to the website and go in, and I'll share that link. But once you go in, it has downloadable books that you can download, multiple books. Mm-hmm. And you go to the grade level that perhaps your child's in, but it's very engaging. I found it engaging. I thought they were really good. And plus anytime anything's free, I like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, well,
I like free.
Right, because have you been to the grocery store lately? It costs so much money, right? So I think about that because it's just me at my house with my dog. And I think about, oh my gosh, if I was raising a family now, right? It's not that it's ever been cheap, but so free is really,
it's important.
It's really
important, especially when you have a good, your heart is in the right spot and you want to do what's right for your family. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you're like,
yeah, I've got to pay for
which
food.
one of these things do I need to, I need to keep electric on, or am I going to buy some new books, right? So there's free resources available. And I'm happy to share all of those resources later. And some of the things, one of the strategies that was, I want to make sure, let me just double check my notes to make sure I'm not leaving out anything super, super important that I wanted to share. But labeling things to make it a rich environment at home, it doesn't take much to label things around your house. Repeated reading and retelling, and this really does tie in with the storytelling that we talked about earlier. And this is just, I don't know how much time we have left, but this is a personal story for me. I was a special ed teacher in the classroom, and my own daughter had dyslexia, and I didn't know it.
Okay.
It's like the beautician that has the worst hair, the mechanic that has no car that runs. Yeah, kind of like that. And so one of her teachers said to me, you know, Luann, if you go home, just read aloud to your child. Read aloud to her. And I thought, what is that going to do?
Right.
She needs to have intensive
Yes.
instruction, and I want to make sure we get her up to. No, she said, just read aloud to her. Just read aloud to her, and follow along with your finger. And it sounds so simplistic, but anything that you read is going to be fine. Whether it's the label on the back of the cereal box, or if you're reading, I mean, anything. And even now, you mentioned going to the store. When you go into the store, there's lots of signage in stores.
Yes.
No matter what store you're going to, read things aloud and follow with your finger, because that modeling of the reading behavior, they're going to absorb like a sponge. And I'll tell you, within 1 year's time, my girl was up to grade level.
Made a lot of progress.
It was huge.
Amazing.
And I was just like, who
Wow.
knew?
Who knew I could do
That just reading and retelling the story and asking them to tell me the story back. Like, so if we read any kind of story, or we're reading things around, an hour later, I'd be like, do you remember what that sign said in that store? Like, we were just in the Walmart. What did that say? And asking them to recall in the form of a question. And it was amazing. And so that all plays into building that up. And just talk to your child. Talking.
I mean, talking. People,
Building that vocabulary.
And I think the quality of talking. So sometimes we can say, don't stop, sit, be quiet, right? Very directive, short, repetitive over and over and over. That's not really
But not just having
that's
discussions.
not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about conversations back and forth using different words.
Right.
Introducing them
a
to
lot
new
of times
concepts.
it's, how was school today? Good. Okay.
What'd you do? Nothing.
Nothing. Right.
Do you have any homework? No.
No. And so being creative, as a parent, as family, to think about how can I pull and tease more information out of, and, so why did you like that today? Or, what did you like best about today? Recess, lunch. Okay.
Right.
Well, what did you like about lunch? What did they serve you? Like, asking those kind of things and just trying to really open up and have that dialogue is super important. And then you can lead into other things. Like, that really opens the door to have other more rich conversations where you can use larger vocabulary and have those higher expectations. And, that really translates back to some of my work in the disability realm. I found a lot of times parents and families that had a child that had extensive support needs. Because the children that I worked with, just to give a background, they had like feeding tubes or brain shunts. They were wheelchair bound, or they needed toileting. Like, so they were,
pretty significant
challenges for them. A lot of times they spoke down to their child. Okay, so they'd be 18, and yes, he's in a wheelchair and has a shunt and is very limited verbally, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to talk to him as though he's a baby.
Yeah.
Like a 2-year-old, right? Like, you want some milk from your sippy? No, why would you talk to them that way? So thinking about having those higher expectations and appropriate expectations for your child. So if your child is 16, speak to your child as though they're 16 years old, and don't be caught up in, oh, well, their school says that he's only on a kindergarten reading level, whatever, which is fine. That's fine. That's still something that we're going to work on increasing. But at the same time, that's not going to, bridge that gap unless we as parents hold our child to that expectation of, this is the appropriate language that we should be using at this age and developmental level. This is the appropriate language we should use, and making sure that you're using that with your child. If they have, if they have ASD or autism, if they have limited cognition, you want to make sure to put them up.
So in conclusion, what is one thing, Luann, what is one thing that you could ask families, or that you want them to know? What do you think is the most important thing for them to know?
Know that you're not alone. And that if you feel the need to, like, man, I want to do something, I just don't know what. I'd like families to know that ETSU is not just some big entity, castle in the sky that is not accessible. We're all real people.
Yes, we are.
We work there, and we we care and we want to like give you whatever resources or support that you need. So I guess if it was one thing that your listeners could take away from this is perhaps re-looking at the university from a different lens and seeing it more as a partnership of people that are here wanting to help. We want to help, and we would love if you would reach out to us and say, hey, you know, I have this afternoon tea with a bunch of people. Would you mind coming and talking about instructional strategies with us?
Right.
We would love to. And
Yes.
so just really kind of reframing how we view university and thinking about that as faculty there, I'm a meemaw. I've got my grandbabies. I raised a family, and I'm a real person, and I love my dog. You know, those things where I'm a real person as well. And I would relish the opportunity to be able to come and hang out and talk with families and share what knowledge I've gathered over the years with others to help support them. And so seeing the people that work at the university more as just people that are there to help you as a resource, as a source of support, instead of, you know, just an entity that's unattainable or untouchable. That, you know, we want to be there with you.
Yes.
So
that's true for
I
so
hope
many.
that's okay. I mean,
That's true for so many people on the college campus, right? But often I think in the community, people are like, oh, you're a professor,
Right.
Like, and you don't want to like mess with me, or you don't want to hear my family problems, or you don't want to help me with my,
Right.
you know, like you have college to teach. But yeah, I think that's very true. So there's a College of Ed website. I can put Louianne's contact information. Even if you're a teacher, like we love hanging out with teachers.
oh my
and
gosh, yes.
hearing your challenges and what
Yes.
supports that you need. So
Absolutely. Love our SPED teachers. So
Yes, we
educators,
absolutely-
reach out.
we do.
Here for you.
Yeah. Thank you for stopping by on a Friday afternoon.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's a beautiful day, and I appreciate that you came to hang out with me instead of, I don't know, it's almost 5. And
I really have no life, so I'm glad to be here.
that's not true. Thank you all for joining us today. I have to say thanks to Ballot Health for sponsoring Growing Stronger Together. A big shout out to Mitch, who owns and operates and is the boss here at Maypop Media. Even though I don't know Mitch, will Marissa agree with that? She may say, she's the corporate boss. Okay,
There's an hierarchy.
that's a great way to do it. I have more stellar guests lined up early next week, so keep listening. Mitch usually releases my podcasts on Friday, Families on Fridays, and I'm really grateful for you listening, and I hope you've picked up some good tips today. Until next time, take care.